Yeah, that's right, we are back. So today I'm pretty excited because I'm here at Basingstoke pump track. I've been meaning to do a video reflecting on my experiences of learning to ride a pump track for quite a while. And today the pump track's not quite dry enough to ride yet. It's burning through, so while I'm waiting for it to dry out, I thought I'd take this opportunity to run you through some of the key points. Now, I find the pump track to be really good fun. It's a great way to isolate learning to carve and also learning to pump, and you don't need to necessarily be able to drop in to start working on those things. I found a barrier to entry to getting into bowls and also learning transition to start with was I couldn't drop in, and therefore I couldn't develop enough speed to have a good crack at doing those skills. I also find the pump track a really fun way to exercise. Gets the old heart rate up, gets the lactic acid going in the legs and also the glutes. The novelty of doing squats in the gym and spin classes is worn pretty thin. So the pump track is a great way to push through my physical barriers. I can harness some of that adrenaline and I don't really notice the burn and the pain. I found when I started to learn the pump track, there were three main skills I needed to develop. The first one was rolling in, the second one was pumping over a speed bump, and the third one was carving a turn around the berm. To start with, I found rolling in a little bit scary, and it's a bit of a game of opposites. I think a conservative approach of starting on the edge and trying to go in is way more scary than approaching the roll-in with a little bit of speed. To start with, it was best to have a long run up to the roll-in. This allowed me to get my feet into the correct position, also get my knees bent down, and then as I rolled over the top, just tried to keep my weight centered and also just stay on the board. I also found that proximity could also be a little bit scary, so having a wider roll-in patch tended to be easier than trying to go down a little narrow roll-in nook. Once I'd rolled in, it was time to address the pump bump. Now, the pump bumps are there to develop the speed, and that's where the pump track gets its name. So I found the technique for getting over a pump bump is to try and push my body weight up the first part of the bump whilst bending the knees up. And these act as sort of shock absorbers, trying to keep the head and the shoulders at the same level and just allowing the knees to bend up. When I get to the top of the bump, it's just a case of going down the other side and extending the legs back out. And it's the use of gravity and also that extending of the legs that pushes the board forward like a bar of soap. And that's where the speed can be attained. Now, there's a bit of a timing element with regards to when to pump. And I think I developed that through repetition and just a bit of trial and error. You probably noticed people steaming around a pump track and it looks like they're not really putting much work in and they're going like the clappers. And I think this is due to the advanced rider having the timing finessed so that there's relatively little amount of work that needs to be done to maintain and also increase the speed. I find the more courageous I can be with my knee bending, the more I can generate speed because I've got more to push through from. I also find that I change my foot pressures as I pump. So as I go up the speed bump, I put a little bit more pressure on the back foot and I bend the front knee up a little bit more. And as I come down the other side, I extend that front knee a little bit more and place a little bit more pressure on the front foot. The final skill to learn is to carve around a berm. And there's two different ways this can happen, front side and back side. So I relate this to surfing. A front side turn is where you've got the front of your body facing the transition or the wave. And a backside turn is where you've got the backside of your body facing the transition or the wave. Now, it's sort of down to the individual as to which one you naturally find easier. I find with the front side, I can see the entire ramp, but it's a little bit more scary because I feel like I'm going to fall backwards. And with the backside, I find it easier to rotate the turn because I can see the transition. It's not quite as scary, but I can't see how far my wheels are going out. I remember the first type of carving turn that I learned was what I call a passive carving turn. So not really putting any pumping or swishing of the body in, just literally trying to turn around the corner and get out the other side. I found one thing that made this a lot easier was taking a racing driver style wide angle in, so trying to go as wide out of the turn as possible. And this allowed me to use the berm and not execute quite as tight a turn. And to start with, I found trying to carve a tight turn was quite tricky to do. One thing that helps with the carving is to bend the knees right down, and this is a common thing with skateboarding. I find it hard to bend my knees because it seems madness to get closer to the tarmac or the concrete. But I found through repetition I can train my brain that it is actually safer to go closer to the perceived danger. The more advanced style of carving turn is to actively try and pump through the corner. I found that I can place my body and my shoulders a little bit ahead of the turn, and this provides somewhere for me to then swish my legs around. And with a little bit of practice, it's possible to actually generate speed and pump through the corners and come out of the turn with more speed than you go into it with. I also found when practicing my carving, I could do things like make a little mark on the berm just to see how high I was getting up the berm. The higher I got up the berm, I found the more speed I could generate. On the berms on this pump track, there's a red line at the top, so I might try and aim to get my wheels to go over that red line. If it's a pump track with coping, you can also start to do a carving grind, so getting the trucks to swish across. I wouldn't recommend it on this pump track with the asphalt because that's pretty rough, and I reckon it'd end in the board stopping pretty quickly. When the pump track dries out, I'm going to get on my surf skate. I find generally with tarmac pump tracks that a softer wheel works better, takes a bit of the vibration out, and it also adds a little bit of speed and reduces a bit of the noise. I remember some of my early goals of a pump track was trying to get round a backside turn, trying to get round a front side turn, and then trying to link those things together and eventually make it through one lap of the pump track without doing any pushing off, trying to get back where I started, and then keeping on going round and round as many laps as I could. Obviously, one of the things that's going to hold you back is the burn of the legs. So building up your fitness, going for that world record of the amount of laps that are possible in one go. I also used to time myself around a lap and see if I could beat my world record time. Obviously, as my technique got better and better, it allowed me to pump more speed. I got more courageous through the berms and eventually got my time to reduce down. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you're starting out on your pump track journey, the best of luck, and leave your experiences in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, feel free to hit subscribe. I make new videos every week. You can also follow me on Instagram @JohnBishopSkate. As ever, my name's been John Bishop, and I'm a middle-aged guy learning how to skate.